Is the MCU finally dead? Hello there, and welcome to today's video. A little while ago now, the first official teaser for Avengers Doomsday dropped, and since then we've had a number of teasers also dropped. And I felt nothing. I wasn't excited seeing Chris Evans back as Captain America, I didn't care about a more serious Thor being back, and I don't particularly care about, the original X-Men coming back and Cyclops' comic-accurate costume making an appearance. None of this aroused any feeling in me whatsoever, which is insane. If you'd come up to me 10 years ago and told me that Marvel would be bringing the Fox X-Men back into the fold to take part in a multiversal war against Doctor Doom, I would have been so hyped. I mean, I still remember seeing the first teaser for the Avengers. I still remember all the little individual pieces of marketing surrounding Infinity War and Endgame, and how fans would try so hard just to get a hold of anything and everything they could to find out just that little bit more. Now, it all feels more half-hearted than anything else, as if it's an obligation rather than genuine passion. It just feels empty, and I'd like to tell you why. Back when Marvel was still the plucky little underdog betting it all on C-tier characters, they had a plan. A plan that would make sure that the whole world would remember characters that they couldn't even sell off. Phases 1 to 3 had a clear direction. They were building the Avengers up, and all the while in the background, they were setting up Thanos and his mad quest for the Infinity Stones. There was a clear sense of escalation as each movie fed into the next, and characters were allowed to grow and change over the course of each subsequent movie, overcoming their original flaws and stumbling into new ones. Tony Stark went from an arrogant billionaire playboy to a hero, willing to sacrifice everything to save the world. Captain America went from a World War II soldier that believed in his government implicitly to a hero who saw the grey areas of the modern world and strove to do what was right, whether his government agreed with him or not. Thor went from an arrogant, warmongering prince eager to become king and impose his will on the realms, to a modest hero who recognized that he wasn't ready to become king and strove to earn that right. The weaker movies were far more forgivable because everything felt important and part of a much larger tapestry. And because of this, the stakes felt earned, because the groundwork had been laid and the time had been taken to set everything up. There was a reason people used to bemoan the DCEU's rush to get their Justice League movie out, and it was because Marvel had treated every single character as important, and they'd spent so much time building them up so that the audience felt like they were important too. That, unfortunately, is no longer the case. Phase 4 and 5 has been an absolute mess, for a lot of reasons, but mostly from a writing standpoint. Sure, Marvel has pushed out too many movies too quickly, failing to give audiences, actors, and importantly the CGI artists, time to breathe. And, the movies they've been releasing have been terrible, with no sense of direction, no clear central threat, or no final destination in mind. They've introduced characters and plots that go nowhere, hinted at things of importance that never materialize, and have switched focus so many times that it's hard to keep track. And sure, some of this can be blamed on external factors like the Jonathan Majors debacle or Chadwick Boseman dying, but so much more blame has to be laid at the feet of the writers Marvel has been hiring. Marvel has gotten into a bad habit of telling its audience what to think, rather than showing them through actions, prioritizing messaging over character.
I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. What don't I understand?
They use their characters like mouthpieces, rather than treating them like real people. And their reliance on humor to undercut emotion has only exacerbated the problem. If you need a concrete example of this, look no further than Marvel's She-Hulk, a show that's only aim seemed to be to tell the audience how they should view women and feminism.
Well, here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street. When incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or I might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. So all of this just feels like projecting a lot of shit onto me.
When compared to the characters from Phase 1 to 3, She-Hulk is a pale imitation at best. What exactly does she struggle with? What are her flaws? She's shown to be immediately better at being a Hulk than Bruce, who had to go through an entire character journey to get where he is today. The new legacy characters now feel more like cardboard cutouts with messages written on them, rather than the fully fleshed out characters we got previously, like Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man, who all had clear flaws and arcs that spanned across multiple films, with clear and direct consequences for their actions. People often complain about DEI hiring when it comes to the new legacy characters, but I don't think representation is the real problem. I mean, Marvel's proven before that diverse casts work when the characters are well written. The issue is that too many new characters are introduced fully formed, praised by the story, and then never allowed to struggle, which makes them just feel unearned. Riri Williams is a prime example, as she decries Tony Stark's achievements, talks about how he was essentially a rich, privileged asshole who wouldn't have gotten as far as he did if not for his generational wealth.
He contributed immensely to the field, so I won't roast Tony Stark off rip. But I don't have $1 billion.
A statement which completely ignores one of the most quoted lines from the first Iron Man movie.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
And in doing this, in setting up these legacy characters as inherently better than their predecessors, while verbally tearing those predecessors down, all Marvel has done is breed resentment instead of building a connection with their audience the way they used to. Which brings us to a big problem Marvel is currently facing. The warning signs were there when Spider-Man No Way Home first premiered and Tobey and Andrew swung onto our screens. Don't get me wrong, I adore No Way Home, and I love seeing the 3 live-action Spider-Men interact with one another. But when you take the nostalgia goggles off, you realize that Andrew and Tobey were used to plug up the holes in No Way Home's script, blinding the fans with nostalgia so that the structural problems went unnoticed. And the consequence for No Way Home was that Tom Holland's Spider-Man felt like the least interesting iteration of the character in his own movie. There's a very similar problem happening in Deadpool and Wolverine, only the use of legacy characters in that movie revealed a far more systemic problem. Again, I love Deadpool and Wolverine. I love that Hugh Jackman came back, and in the yellow spandex no less. But honestly, I love his ending in Logan more. An ending that hit as hard as it did, partly because we as an audience knew that this was it. This was going to be Hugh's last time putting on the claws. But now, it doesn't matter. No consequence matters, because actors can just be brought back for a suitable amount of money and called a variant, no questions asked. The perfect example is Endgame. It's a flawed movie, for sure, but it's still beloved because it was the culmination of 10 years of storytelling, and provided a definitive ending for a lot of characters that had gone on these incredible journeys. But now, those fitting conclusions can just be swept under the rug in an attempt to pull back old audience members. Nostalgia has to be used so carefully, and it should be used to enhance a story, not be used in place of one. And I mean, you know what, here's an honest question for those of you at home right now. If Marvel was truly so confident in its new characters that they rushed to have them replace the originals, would they really need to keep bringing back the old faces? The Doomsday teaser, and by extension the film itself, relies on familiar faces, vague spectacle, and an implied importance without any thematic or story-based weight. There are no emotional stakes because the universe hasn't earned them, and the audience hasn't been guided towards them. we knew what Infinity War was building towards. By contrast, I have no idea what Doomsday is really supposed to mean for the characters, other than that Marvel wants to earn more money. All the issues Marvel has experienced throughout phases 4 and 5 seem to have been crystallized in this big, tentpole team-up movie that really seems intent on replacing actual writing with nostalgia-fueled hype. Nothing has been set up or earned outside of a minute-long post-credit scene in Fantastic Four, and nothing has been done to ensure audience investment in these characters. Marvel has broken its fans' trust with a myriad of terrible movies that have destroyed the characters that fans loved and replaced them with archetypes that spout messages rather than dialogue, and who interact with previous iterations just to offset how poorly each character has been written. And when you've broken the trust your audience used to feel, well, we no longer believe that the characters matter, that setups will go anywhere, and that emotional beats will stick. And because of that, the hype machine just stops working. The teasers feel hollow. And when you release a new project, the world just collectively shrugs and moves on. Marvel trained its audience to care, and then they stopped rewarding that care. Now, they could try to fix this in the future by, maybe slowing down a little bit, bringing in some talented writers, having a long-term plan, and actually letting their stories breathe. But, to be honest, money talks, and the MCU earned way too much money to truly apply the lessons they should be learning. And the unfortunate consequence is that I and many others have checked out. A whole legion of superfans who bought the merch, watched the movies over and over in cinema, and who raved about the stories and characters. Well, we no longer care. Maybe Marvel could get me to care again if they put in the work. But it's gonna take a lot of work. And in the meantime, I just have to sit back and watch in apathy as one of my favorite properties on the planet grinds itself into dust. The MCU didn't just lose quality. It lost the feeling that these stories were going somewhere. And once that feeling is gone, there's no amount of hype that can bring it back. This was a pretty fucking sad video to have to make. It feels like all of these properties that I once loved are just kind of being shattered slowly but surely. And the worst part is, it's like seeing a train crash in slow motion. Like, it's gonna end badly, but there's literally nothing you can do. Like Star Wars, Marvel, I'd go so far as to put the DC universe in that one. Like all of these properties that I used to love and spend so much time thinking about and exploring the world and all that are just being crushed under the weight of astronomical greed, which is just depressing. But I don't know. What did you guys think of the teasers? Are you hyped that Doomsday is happening and Secret Wars? Are you hyped that they're bringing all these characters back? What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comment section down below, and thank you for watching.